welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that's caught our eye this week. I'm James, and with me is ace contributor Peter Anderson, who's frustrated by the general approach to our automotive future, as well as Matt, better known as Mr. Pritchard, who's been looking at high-profile car collaborations and wondering why.
Yes.
And we'll update you on our favourite tunnelling, driving, shooting star in this week's Muskwatch. So stay with us. But first, we'll go to a section that we are calling Diffuser, which will be our opportunity to share any feedback that we've had, if we've had any. And this week we have, happily. Hammer Rocks.
Exciting.
Hammer Rocks on YouTube. He's a person who's given us his thoughts before, so thank you again, Hammer Rocks.
Thank you.
And he was wanting to comment on the Supra. He said, after our discussion last week, it was Chesto and Mal and myself, and we were just talking about the relative merits of that new Supra's looks and various other bits and pieces. Hammer Rock says, I too thought it was ugly, but it's starting to grow on me. The more videos and photos I see of it, the more I start to like it. Though I think it can use bigger and wider wheels to complete the look. So that seems like fair enough input. And Forza Geek 101 just gave us an emoji, the thumb and index finger okay emoji. I'm taking that as a massive compliment.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to
Aimed specifically at you, I think.
Forza Geek 101.
Forza
Well
Geek
done.
101.
Brilliant. All right, now
Love the handle.
from exactly.
The other 100, useless. 101.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, as Peter rightly said, somewhat ironically, we are going to go to our segment called Blowing a Gasket, where we get stuff off our chest. But it's BEVs and PHEVs. Peter, you reckon we might be getting them wrong. Take it away.
I think so. So whenever you hear people talking about electric cars, they go range, range, range. And yes, I get it.
Right.
We are a big country. But I think the people who are complaining are people like my age and older probably who remember the long road trip. People don't do that anymore.
Yeah, right.
So that's part A of my complaint.
Okay.
Because part B then kind of negates it because there isn't enough charging. We don't have enough charging in this country.
Yep.
And nobody's interested. It's all being left to the private sector who, while they'll do it, don't have the impetus from government. Anyway, part A. So I've had 3-4 electric cars in the last 6-8 weeks.
Yeah,
so
great.
I've had a
Okay.
Range Rover PHEV, I've had an I-Pace, I've had an Ioniq EV,
Yep.
full EV, and
Yep.
an Ioniq PHEV. None of them, apart from the Jaguar, needed anything other than my mains power. And here's why.
Okay.
Most of us do 30, 40 Ks whenever they go out and do something, particularly in Sydney because everything's so
Because
far
let's
from
face
anywhere.
it, the vast majority of the population are in major cities,
Yep.
and the vast majority of that number are in just a couple of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the Range Rover we had over Christmas, we did Christmas Day, pure electric. We did Boxing Day, pure electric. We did
Right.
most of that week on pure electric, hardly used any fuel at all, just plugged it in because it charges in 3 hours.
Was Christmas Day, electrocuting some unloved relatives?
I wouldn't like
No,
to
okay,
say.
fine.
That would have
It's
reduced
a
the range.
multi-purpose
That would
vehicle.
have reduced the range. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, that's right.
And did it all on mains power. I don't have a wall box at home, and I was actually thinking before I had this run of electric cars, I should probably invest in a wall box,
Right.
because it's tax deductible, given it's for my job.
Sure.
But we've realised we don't need it, and even with the I-Pace was the only one that I kind of wanted to charge on something a bit faster because range and performance are enemies.
Right.
Whereas in something like the Ioniq,
Yeah.
there is no performance. It's not a fast car.
Because the two sides of the coin, okay, there's range, but there's also charge time.
Yeah.
So you're saying that from mains, it's probably an overnight kind of proposition. You're just plugging the car in. It might take many hours,
Yeah.
but so what? You're
charging
staring
your
at the
phone.
back of your eyelids.
30 Ks, right?
Exactly. So at the same time, various brands are coming up with faster and faster charging times. So even that becomes less of a factor, yeah?
It does, but mains power is always going to have that same limitation
Yeah.
of whatever it is, 11 kilowatts out of 10 amps. And that's always going to be slow, but that's all you need for most
Sure.
people. And I am saying this is most people. Not everybody is going to get away with it, and which leads me on to the charging conundrum.
All right.
Because as you rightly pointed out, 2 cities are holding the lion's share of the Australian population, which means we're going up, which
Yep.
means
Yep.
where do you park? Well, if you're lucky, you get a car spot downstairs in the apartment block.
Sure.
We've all been there.
Yep.
where do you charge? Well, body's corporate. Sorry to all the body corporate who are out there, but you're all terrible. You're all so hard to deal with. No, they are. They're really hard to deal with. I want a PowerPoint.
That's actually
in my
body
car
shaming.
spot.
That is body shaming.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a hill I'm going to die on. You can't get anything done. Like,
Right.
Where do you charge?
So you mean the whole idea of retrofitting a whole bunch of high-powered chargers into
or even
the
just a
basements
mains point into your
right.
garage.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we can't possibly do that. Oh,
Right.
that's way too hard. So
Get your point. Yep.
what staggers me about Sydney City Council, who are all very green, and I'm all for that, but there are no street charging points.
Yes.
They're all hidden away in Tesla's in Star Casino. I mean,
Some of them
seriously.
are in parking. Some of them are in parking stations.
They are.
where you actually have to, pull a ticket before you can
the big
go
bucks,
in and use it.
and that's the big bucks. There's no you go to London, Berlin, Paris. There's all of these places. Even the US, which loves a gas guzzler. There's these blue LED ringed places to park, and so if you're parking on the street in London, whatever it is, £1 an hour, half hour, or whatever, you're also getting a charge.
Yes.
And if you can do that in Mayfair, in the middle of very posh London, I think Sydney can manage it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Melbourne can manage it.
There is the phenomenon in the States, of course, of icing, which is where, the good old boys in their rolling coal, jacked up trucks want to park in the Tesla supercharger
They do
spots.
that, yes.
So Tesla drivers can't actually recharge their car as some kind of lame brain protest against the future.
Rednecks aren't known for their intelligence. So
Here's a photo of me flipping off a charging station.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
well done.
Take Miranda Fair in Sydney's, in God's own country down there in the Shire. They did this massive refit. There wasn't a single charging point for an electric car.
Right, and that's a shopping centre?
It's a massive Westfield shopping centre. There is a
Right.
charging point in there provided by BMW. But there was nothing.
Wow.
There was nothing. And so the local council didn't say they had to do anything. The state government didn't say they had to do anything. The federal government's looking the other way.
Right.
They are constantly looking the other way.
Which is largely a factor of just a short-term focus for government, be it local,
ideological
state,
legacy.
federal. It's what's in front of us right this minute.
Well, I'm most mad about councils because they're the ones that people just vote on autopilot. It's like council elections. I don't even get a democracy sausage because it's obviously most of them are.
Well,
you do it at home and
I'm not
post
sure
it
what
in.
ward I'm in.
Yeah, who cares?
I don't know.
They're the guys who can get away with doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas state and federal, we pay a bit more attention.
Right.
We should pay more attention to state because then we end up with people like Mark Latham in politics. But councils. Political point. Let's not get into that. But they can get away with it because it doesn't matter what happens at council. If someone misses your bins, you don't know who's at fault.
Yeah, it's more likely. So by the sound of it, the force that's going to cause change, it's not going to be a strategic forethought.
No.
It's going to be more and more people owning electric vehicles and
It-
putting a demand on the council.
Yep.
So
or the feds or the state.
yeah,
That or
yeah,
we'll get
exactly.
that nice Blade Runner flip of it being completely private.
Yes.
And companies like the Star.
Yeah.
Just having their own.
People are deciding. I mean, it's like with solar panels. The government's kind of gone, in the last 5 years. And people are going, you know what, bugger you. We're going to do it anyway. And that's what's going to happen with electric cars.
Yes.
It's going to happen in spite of government rather than because of government.
But I think, we've possibly touched on this conversation before. A country like Australia, because it is diverse, we've established that so many people live on the coast and in the big cities. But there are still journeys that are undertaken over long distances, not as frequently as has been the case previously, but they still happen. So there may well be a need for a certain kind of car with a certain kind of drivetrain for this purpose, and another one that's more suitable for, inner city running, and on it goes. So rather than one car for multi-purposes, there's going to be a car for that purpose.
And that's
maybe.
certainly where, look at Ford's second car thing. And,
Yep.
and I do think like that Ioniq PHEV, it looks like, according to the range-o-meter, you could drive that to Melbourne on one tank.
Sure.
So, but for those who do want to get around electric 95% of the time when they're in the city, that car will do it. I've driven exclusively for a week on electric power.
And sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was going to say I actually know someone who they recently bought a Model X, and they were look. I had the same conversation with them. I did exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Do they like the look of it from the rear three-quarter view?
Yeah, right. Well, and look, in saying that though, when I saw it and the doors did the Star Trek thing, I was like, okay, I get it.
But until you want to turn a corner,
yeah,
and all that weight goes. Whoa!
And where are they at with with it?
So they were travelling over Christmas, and they were travelling cross country, and they had to stop to charge it along the way, and they were hunting around for a supercharger in the country, and they found one, and they plugged it in, and they were waiting for it, and their daughter just kind of like standing there, and then just very innocently asks, "Would it be taking this long if we had a regular petrol car?"
And that's not the car's fault. It's not necessarily the car's fault. But,
no.
You know, she does have a point.
It was funny.
It is great. I like that, out of the mouths of babes and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, our own Malcolm Flynn,
Yeah.
who is attuned to these things, got himself into trouble with the I-Pace, which has a good range.
So he did. That's right. Yes, that's right.
So it's kind of weird. Most people don't understand that they will be able to get away with their weekly, daily, school run, work run, station run on electric.
Yep.
You just got to remember to plug in. And that's what my wife always says. Well, what if you forget to plug in? Well, get a PHEV.
That's why
get a PHEV.
Yeah, that's why plug-in hybrid is kind of attractive because it does let you get away with that laziness.
We all think that
feel like
like,
it.
No, I'd always have it charged. And the amount of time I've gotten to work to realise my phone's dying, and gone, God damn it!
Exactly.
Every time I need to leave chargers everywhere.
But you know, until we got things like roll-on, roll-off charging, all that. But yeah, so I think people need to get real about how they're using their cars before they discount a PHEV or even a BEV.
Great.
Because again, the fully electric Ioniq, which I would not recommend for driving to Canberra or Melbourne with, but will do perfectly around the city, and it will charge overnight.
Cool.
Unless you're a night
And
owl.
we want to hear from our viewers and listeners. So if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments, or just comments at carsguide.com.au, let us know. Join
Feel free to tell me I'm wrong, because I often am.
Right. Write that down.
I've committed this to tape and video.
Okay.
You're wrong. Not about this. Just
generally
stuff.
speaking.
Now, Matt, we're turning our gaze to you because you have indeed been looking at collaborations
I have.
between things, brands and car brands
good,
and all of that.
I love a good brand synergy.
Give us some examples and your thoughts on the matter.
So the most recent one that I was looking at was the Hyundai Kona Iron Man edition, which I saw pictures of and immediately just thought to myself, but why though?
Yeah.
And the disclaimer here is that I love Marvel movies. I love Marvel comics. I love superhero stuff in general.
Yeah.
And I actually quite like the Kona.
You sometimes arrive at work with the power stance as if you've just, crashed through the ceiling.
Yeah. I mean,
well, he has.
You know how they say, dress for the job you want.
Yeah.
The job you have.
Good point.
But no, and I actually quite like the Kona. Like, it didn't set my soul on fire when I drove it.
It's a very good car.
Yeah, and I like the way it looks. I'm a sucker for bright colours. But
so for those having a look on YouTube, we'll have a picture of the car up on screen.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But the turret is red with an Avengers symbol on
they've got the Iron Man helmet.
Iron Man helmet.
Iron Man
on the
helmet,
top.
James.
So beg your pardon.
Seriously.
And it's a glossy kind of charcoaly grey with these very bright, rich red accents around the car to mimic the costume. Sorry, I mean the suit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As I sit here, king of gatekeeping.
Can I just get this out so we can continue and move on? But all superhero movies are terrible, with Deadpool being the exception that proves the rule.
Remember how I said before you were wrong?
No, see, I'm right about this. So let's move on. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
So that's
get going in the comments on that one.
Actually. So and some of the tech on the inside lights up, like the arc reactor that powers the suit. And
The
everything.
arc reactor.
Yeah, right.
I
know all the.
So Matt, you'd
all the terminology.
You'd be in the bullseye of the target.
I
for this car.
would.
If you're such a Marvel, devotee, and you were potentially in the market for an SUV like the Kona,
sure,
and you thought, hey, what would you think? Would you be happy to park this in your driveway?
No, what this is. This particular one is pester power, because the kids are going to come with you to, hey kids, let's go and look at a new car. Dad, we want that one. Mum, I want that one. No, we're going to look ridiculous. I'm 8. I don't care.
Right. And I think, and that was one of the things that kind of got me about it, because I'm normally that inner 8-year-old who was like, you know what, I don't care. I want it, but for me, I was thinking, if you're in the market for a Kona.
Yeah.
Why would you go for this one because it costs extra, but they were saying that there are some features that, even though it's based on the higher spec model, there were some features that come with that don't come with this one.
I see.
I was like, surely you would want, if you're going to shell out for the high spec one you'd want.
I
don't
gotta
think
say,
you're buying that car with your head.
Yeah, well,
Or your arc reactor, for that matter.
Exactly,
You're buying
yeah.
it with your heart.
I think, for what it's worth, if I were to pull up in traffic next to the Kona Ironman, I would immediately be massively judgmental.
yes,
And
yes.
I would be thinking, you're a dick.
Yeah.
And look, I like the Avengers films. I quite like Iron Man as a character. It's just that having your car daubed with all that stuff.
And the thing that I found with it is that because if you love Iron Man that much that you want to be like, I want to be like Tony Stark in real life, which, look, I have problems with that too, but I just...
Well, he's heartless.
I was just thinking there's a different way to do that. It made me think of, there's a clip from The Simpsons where it's a Halloween episode and Milhouse is wearing a Radioactive Man Halloween costume. He's like, hey Lisa, look, I'm Radioactive Man. And she looks at him and he's wearing a plastic mask and a t-shirt with a picture of Radioactive Man on it saying trick or treat. And she just kind of looks at him and goes, I highly doubt that Radioactive Man would wear a plastic smock with a picture of himself on it. That's how I feel about the Iron Man Kona.
But the other case in point that you've come up with is also in the sci-fi realm.
Yes.
But, tell us about that one.
So a few years ago, around the release of Star Wars Rogue One, Nissan did their Rogue One Rogue, which
they did, didn't they?
I understand conceptually, because Rogue,
which is the X-Trail.
Yes,
in the States.
In the US, yeah.
Yep.
And it was a bit more subtle. It came in Darth Vader black or Stormtrooper white. Yeah, but it wasn't as Star Warsy.
Well, the Iron Man Kona is really out there.
Yeah,
like
it has like Stark Industries written on it, whereas this you had like a few little
detail.
These are basically black or white X-Trails with a little plaque on saying, Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah, which again, why?
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing, right? The power of fandom knows no bounds, and I think that's why those cars would sell, because these. The car brands like attaching themselves to other brands. They've finally worked out that car buying is an emotional thing.
Sure.
They should have. I mean, they've known it for 20 years, but they haven't really worked it out. It's an emotional thing, and so if you can attach it to other emotional things, again, it's aimed at Gen Xers who get all misty-eyed and dewy-eyed about, their child. I mean, there's no Doctor Who. But Polo or anything.
But 'twas ever thus. I mean, it's 50 years. Bond, Aston Martin. I mean, that association's been going forever.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, as far as really out there putting your fandom on,
Gotcha.
On wearing your heart on your sleeve. That's something that Gen X really does a lot, and it's a bit childish, but okay, who cares? So these things are going to sell.
But speaking of childish,
I was going to say, as a millennial, I mean,
but
we've built entire industries off that.
Off fandom?
Toyota locally came up with one that
Yes.
would resonate, with people's childhood.
Yes.
But had a more, what's the word?
Prosaic.
Meaningful connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that Tonka Hilux,
That's the one.
Yeah.
which was a concept car, all jacked up and covered in carbon fibre cleverness. And I got to speak to Nick Hodgios, who was the designer of that. And that had a really strong reaction, didn't it?
It did.
Lots of people
It
watched it.
did.
Really
I mean, the video that you shot in that interview, a walk around of that vehicle, which is on our site, go and take a look, went through the roof. People couldn't get enough of it.
It was all me, clearly.
The interest in that car is enormous.
Yeah. And people still talk to me about it. Oh, did you see? Because whenever the Hilux comes up, did you see that Tonka Hilux? And I say, well, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. I've spoken to the designer on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
Which is always a great joy. And it was cool, and it worked. We got to drive across a thing they'd set up down at the Australian Technology Park. And it was great fun. But that's a genuine... That Tonka brand, it's like Lego.
Yeah.
It's not. It's much more far-reaching kind of brand than.
And I think conceptually the brands lined up a lot smoother.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Like you don't see Iron Man and think, oh, Hyundai.
Yeah.
Like you don't see Nissan and think, oh, Star Wars. But like a Hilux and
it's
Tonka,
its own brand, isn't it? And it's Tonka tough type stuff.
Yeah.
But Matt, you were saying also that you would probably be more inclined if there was a commercial tie-up that led to a production kind of Tonka Hilux. You might be more attracted by that.
Yeah. Kinda. Yeah.
That'd be a bit of fun on the work site, wouldn't it?
Well, it's less cynical.
You've got your Tonka truck.
I think the Iron Man stuff is a bit cynical because it's not cynical. It's kind of overdriven by commercialism and marketing. Whereas the Tonka stuff, it makes sense in people's heads. Oh, Hiluxes are really tough. that was helped by the whole Top Gear thing, pushing off a cliff and it still starts, all
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the Iron Man thing is, let's skin this car and sell it.
The other thing from Toyota's point of view, and I must admit, I have a Tonka truck. I'm a man of a certain age, and I have a Tonka truck that is steel, and I've had since I was very young, and I still love, and the positioning line was always built Tonka tough.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's still looking fantastic, all this time later. So from Toyota's point of view, there's not only that feel-good association, but that Tonka toughness.
That principle of toughness.
is a beautiful alignment.
I
for
thought
them.
it was great.
Yeah.
It's far more successful than, say, the Carlo Zampatti Laser.
Yeah, or the Cartier LTD.
The Roadrunner Barina.
Yeah, the Reebok Pulsar.
Reebok Pulsar.
Hey.
About Polo Beats by Dre.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I actually drove the Polo Beats by Dre.
You know what I quite liked, strangely, was the Fender Beetle.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, no.
That sounds fun.
Look, it was nothing to do. It was actually nothing to do with the Fender badges on the grill. The car itself looked terrific. They were all black and they had those special wheels. I quite liked the car.
Nice.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you've got any crap co-productions like this,
Exactly.
stick them in the comments.
Let us know.
Tell us what you thought. All good ones. I don't care.
So we, of course, are sitting in the shed, and just over the wall is where we park the cars. So this week we've been driving certain vehicles, and Peter, kick us off. You've been in an American muscle car.
The Mustang.
Yep.
Now, there's a little bit of history to this. The first Mustang I drove, I hated. I thought it was really, really ropey.
Was it of this generation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was the original MY when they first came out in this current
Might have
shape.
been 15.
15.
Yep, something like that.
It was rubbish. The seats were squidgy and horrific. The interior just looked like it was all like the chrome on the switches looked like it was going to chip off like a cheap toy.
Right.
The dash was rubbish. The ride was you couldn't hear the V8. I went, what the hell was going on? And I just got out of that car. And I'm not a Mustang guy. I don't. I understand the point of it. I get it. But everyone goes, "Oh, have you driven a Mustang?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's sacrilege, right?"
Right.
Anyway, so fast forward to MY19, which is the new car. It's not new, but it's a revelation. You can hear the engine. Like from a stock exhaust, that thing bellows, and it sounds fantastic.
Right.
First gear is long, really long. Like I actually found going into corners, I was in first gear to go around. That's the only criticism I've got of this car. It's so much better. The seats are great, even though it did have the optional Recaros. Seats are great. Engine's great. Handling's really good, considering it's a muscle car, and it looks good. I loved it. I really did like it.
And it's in the kind of low 60 grand kind of
I
bracket?
think the one I drove would have been mid-60s with a couple of options on it. It had the Magna Ride suspension. I'd be very interested to see what the static suspension's like.
Right.
But I thought it was really good.
And really, those points you've raised, that's the big part of people who enjoy those cars. That's the big part of the fun. The big muscular engine and the way it looks and feels. So, okay, well, that's great. Good news.
The one I first drove felt like junk. This felt like a good car.
All right. Now, Matt,
Yes.
you have been behind the wheel of...
The Kia Cerato.
Yeah, and I think it's the S, which is the entry point.
Is it the warm
There's an S Sport. This is the S.
The S, so it's kind of like the Hyundai
This is the
Go
entry point.
type.
It's
idea.
about
Go,
it's a low 20s kind of proposition. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you make of that?
I quite liked it.
You did?
As bare bones as it was. I'm not being, a super, big car person.
Right.
Like it's
You're in the right job.
I know, right? I know. Yeah. I don't even know how I got on this show. Help me.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was fine. There were a few things where I went hunting for the GPS for the map and went, there's not one.
Uh-huh.
All right. Either that or I'm just an idiot and I couldn't find it.
Right.
Oh, I don't think it has it, but
yeah,
it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
I think it probably
I didn't
would.
check.
I think it would.
Yeah,
See, that's why you don't
probably.
need a sat nav.
And the
except I don't trust Apple Maps and CarPlay. The last time I tried it, wouldn't let me use Google
Well, it
Maps.
does now.
Oh, wonderful.
Tip for young players.
Excellent.
Yes, except you can't use Siri with it, which is annoying. But anyway.
Yeah. It was also my first time driving with lane departure warning, and I had no idea it was on.
Oh, yeah, and it just...
so it's adjusting the
kinda
steering wheel for you?
What? No, it just vibrated.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I was driving along, and then suddenly the steering wheel vibrates, and I went, what was that?
Flat
What's
tire,
going
have
on?
I hit something?
Yeah, well, I thought, what have I done? Oh my God, what have I done? And I'm going into like the Cross City Tunnel. I'm going, what have I done to it? Oh my God, there's nowhere to stop. And then it ozzurred to me later what it was. It's like, oh, right.
Some of them are quite
It's really
intrusive.
like, hey, stop.
Yeah. It's not as bad as the eyesight on the Forester is a particular bugbear of mine. It basically panics if you go anywhere near anything.
Yes.
So we give it the two-fingered salute.
As
turn it
does
off.
Audi Presense. It shares the living
bit panicky.
presense out of you.
Yeah,
when
it does.
When it kicks in, it's really quite
because it grabs the
scary.
belt and it
Yeah.
jolts the
great.
brakes and it really gets on it.
Now,
Remember when I was
just
in last and it was a total beep fest trying to park it.
Yeah.
And it's just everywhere.
The
you've
Ioniq
just got
was
to
a bit
hit
like
that little
too.
park button if that's annoying you. There's invariably a
Oh,
way
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Please stop freaking me out.
I've been driving the Skoda Fabia Monte Carlo. So it's the 81 TSI. It's a little turbo triple, 1 litre, and about 81 kilowatts. I've got to say, I really like the seating position. I like the way the car looked. It's snappy red with black wheels and some black accents and things. It looks pretty racy.
Nice.
I really like the seating position, the ergonomics, and the way the car actually operates. The steering wheel's really nice and grippy. What I didn't like was the dual clutch being quite shunty at low speeds, particularly when you're wanting to move off. It's as if quite a clunkiness
Bit disappointing.
off the mark, and also a certain reluctance for the engine to actually pick itself up and get going. So no, I wouldn't call it turbo lag. It just felt like I'm squeezing this throttle, and I want something to happen. It takes quite a bit of doing.
So for those who may be not familiar, why is it called the Monte Carlo?
Oh, look, it's just such an exotic place. I think you're given free casino chips with the car.
Or is it something to do with the Fabia WRC2 car?
Could be a rally
maybe,
somewhere.
I don't know. Maybe.
A rally over there.
I was possibly thinking, is it like the red layer of jam between two biscuits?
That's perfect. That's perfect. Anyway, there
I've
you
also
go.
been driving the Skoda Fabia Kingston.
Or the Nice, which is very close to Monte Carlo.
It's very close to Monte Carlo.
The Octavia
Lower
shortbread cream.
Now, our very own Matty Campbell will be writing a review on that car shortly, so look out for that one. But having got through those three, it is now time for Muskwatch. Okay, so after last week's show,
What's he done
more
now?
or less straight after last week's show, so overnight Friday night last week, it was 1:20 a.m. on Friday in California. Elon sent an all-staff email to Tesla employees.
Oh, yes.
And he recounted key achievements from the last 12 months, followed by notice that 7% of the workforce would be leaving the building.
Well done, everyone.
So
You're fired.
It's been a great year, but look, 7% of you aren't going to be around.
You're not needed.
Basically, it boils down to Tesla needs to get the Model 3 price down. But because Tesla is competing, and this is an Elon quote, against massive entrenched competitors, we must work much harder than other manufacturers to survive.
What nonsense.
Confirming his and Tesla's, quote, mission of accelerating the advent of sustainable transport and energy, which is important for all life on Earth.
That's a fancy way of trying to excuse yourself from firing a bunch of people.
Whoa.
This is a bloke who wants to escape to Mars when he doesn't make his goal of sustainable.
He intends to die a Martian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
okay with me.
So all I can say is that's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But flip side, Dyson, who's setting up its electronic car business in Singapore of all places, but Dyson has just hired former Infiniti chief and BMW heavyweight Roland Kruger.
Yes.
So they are actually shortcutting to the place where Tesla should have been from the beginning, with people that know how to build cars involved in the whole process, rather than ring fencing it within Silicon Valley and saying, we'll reinvent all these wheels because we know better. It seems like Dyson may have a different go at it.
And I've said this before, but, Silicon Valley douchebags think they can do it better than everyone every time. They don't do business better. Well, they think they can. They think they can do everything better, and they're like, no, guys, we've got this. It's this whole kind of skunk works idiocy, which might
they've
work
all
sometimes.
been college nerds together, and they're convinced they can take over the world.
And
Well,
they,
in this case,
and
quite literally.
what I've also said 100 times before is they've given these massive entrenched, like he's complaining about these massive entrenched companies having all this brand, kind of power. He's given them 10 years of covering fire while they faffed around.
Absolutely.
And
He's lost that first mover position. He had Tesla had a real opportunity to pull the rug out from everyone, but by wanting to do it itself, trip up after trip up, has meant that all the big players have had an opportunity to catch up.
And watch.
And other newcomers, startups like Dyson, have probably learned from some of those errors and will accelerate their growth as a result.
Now,
look, the flip side of all that is
that Dyson has an uphill battle because they've built their entire brand on "we suck."
Yeah, we suck. Everything they sell sucks. But the Bloomberg Model 3 production tracker that we've been following every week, 5124, up 486 units on last week, cracked 5,000, which is like the first time since Puss was a kitten, that they've gone through 5,000. So they obviously listened to us last week, and the Fremont wedding marquee is on fire. They are putting some cars through.
I think perhaps there's some people there who'd rather keep their jobs, so suddenly they're working a bit harder.
Well, I think after there we were talking about all of the kind of missteps and the 2 steps forward, couple more back, and just treading water. Maybe next week will be quite telling, but maybe the trajectory is heading upwards on a consistent basis.
Having been on the receiving end of a number of redundancies and often wondered what on earth they get for it, like when you need to make more things, you don't cut the number of people you have.
Well, that's it. They've got to do more with fewer people. And the irony being that the initial installation in that plant was so robot heavy and everything was to be automated, then realised, actually people are better at some of those finer skills. Now they're going to have fewer... Okay, doesn't make sense. Look, there it is. And look, with that, we have reached the finish line. Thank you, Peter.
Quite all right.
And thank you, Mr. Pritchard.
Thank you.
And thanks to our producer, Georgia. It's such a refreshing change from Marsden, who apparently gets upset about some of the observations I make about him, to which I say, I'm not insulting you, I'm just describing you. And look, to have your say, good or bad, search for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram and use the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. You can listen to and watch us on YouTube, and if you're an iTunes fan, please rate and review us. And subscribe, of course.
Of course.
Until next week, as the partial US government shutdown heads into its 34th day, it's timely to quote PJ O'Rourke, who believes giving money and power to government is like giving whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. I think he's dead right.
I think he might be.